Food shortage has been something that a lot of people have been talking about lately, as they should, because prices are ridiculous and farmers aren't going to be able to afford to harvest their crops this year. And so if you think prices are bad in the grocery store right now, they're gonna get even worse. That shouldn't drive you in fear. That shouldn't make you feel helpless. It should make you feel urgent to make some small decisions in your life and small changes in your lifestyle to be able to keep up with the rapidly changing world that we live in today. So I am holding a bushel of bananas here because that's what I'm going to be working on today. I've got my dehydrator going right now because I washed it since this is the first time that I'm going to be using it. I will link down in the description below the one that I got because it was a pretty reasonably priced model, nothing fancy. And this is the first time I'm using it, so I rinsed it out and I am letting it dry with the air on right now. So I have, what is this, 7 bananas, and I'm going to be slicing them up real thin and putting them in the dehydrator right now. That is just going to be one thing that I'm doing today. I'm also going to be vacuum sealing some pasta in jars, but I wanted to talk to you guys about all of the different things that anybody can do, regardless if they live on a farm or they live in New York City in an apartment. Because these are all things that, as long as you have a kitchen, you can do them. There are 4 main ways of preserving food that most people know about. There's dehydrating, freezing, canning, and freeze drying. Freeze drying is the least accessible for most everybody because freeze dryers can be thousands of dollars. Canning for a lot of people is really intimidating simply because nobody taught this generation how to can. So if you don't feel comfortable canning, don't worry, there are 2 other ways that are perfectly accessible. Freezing is a great one. You can preserve most things just by freezing them. However, the problem comes with space and what if the power goes out. So that's where we're going to talk about dehydrating today. And vacuum sealing. Vacuum sealing can be done where you vacuum seal and then put in the freezer, but what we're going to be talking about is vacuum sealing already shelf-stable items in mason jars with just like the lid that you would can, and this will prolong your shelf life for a year, 2 years. It's just a really good way to extend your food's shelf life rather than, you know, like these were perfectly fine in the container that they came in. These are just some little pasta shells that I got at the grocery store, and they would last fine in the cardboard box probably until we use them because we do go through a lot of pasta here. However, in cardboard boxes they can be susceptible to moisture and pests, and this way it just keeps it sealed from everything, and it also looks a whole lot nicer than this. So this is what's in here, and I have a ton more that I need to do this to. This is a fantastic way, and a really cheap one, to just build your inventory of the food that you have in your pantry. So this is what I used to do this. I just put the lid on the jar, and with about like an inch of headspace. So I only filled these noodles like to the point where the neck of the bottle actually starts, or the neck of the jar. And then I put this guy on. I got a kit on Amazon that's a vacuum sealer mason jar attachment. It came with one size for the regular mouth and then one for the wide mouth jars. And so these are regular mouth, so you just stick it on here like so. So like this isn't going anywhere. And then I don't have a vacuum sealer, so it actually, I got a kit that came with this, and this is just a hand pump. It's nothing fancy. And so you just line the hole up with the hole here, and then you just pull this, you know, just like this, and you do it over and over again, you know, maybe 15-ish times. And then to make sure that you got a good seal, you just take this off and you test it. Make sure that the lid is on there and it's vacuum sealed. And this is now protected from rodents and any little bugs that want to get in here. It's protected from moisture and just looks a whole lot prettier. So we are going to be focusing on this and dehydrating some bananas. You can dehydrate like all fruits. I've even seen people dehydrate like yogurt drops, and these things are great to, you know, just snack on or put in cereals, oatmeals, that kind of stuff. But you can also reconstitute, which is reintroducing moisture to these dehydrated fruits, and then you can use them in smoothies and stuff like that. So that is a really great way to dip your toes into preserving food, and it can, I want this to empower you to know that as long as you have a kitchen, or as long as you have really a counter where you can put a dehydrator, you can be one step closer to having food no matter what happens in the grocery stores. And obviously I didn't grow these here. I live in Ohio, can't grow bananas. So just get stuff from your store, any fruit, your farmer's market, things that you grew outside. This has nothing to do with if you garden at all. It's just a really good way to put some food on your shelf, in your pantry, regardless of your situation, regardless of your living situation, or if you're even capable of growing a garden or whatever, because you're gonna be buying food anyways at the grocery store. Just pick up, say, one more bushel of bananas or an extra box of noodles, and this is just something that you can add to your grocery trip every week or every other week, however often you go, and it can be as cheap or expensive as you want it to be. And another thing that I've been doing is I kind of think of this in three waves. I think of this as short-term storage, medium-term storage, and like emergency long-term storage. So this would be medium-term storage. This would be short-term storage. So the pasta that I'm going to keep in my cupboard to use on a nightly basis, I'm going to keep one box of each of the different noodle varieties that I have ready and available to use. And then once I'm out of the boxes of pasta, I will go to my medium-term storage, and that's where this comes in. And because these will last about 1 to 2 years if stored, you know, out of direct sunlight, in a cool, dark place, all that kind of stuff. So this is what I will replenish this with when this runs out. But for long-term storage, I actually have coming in the mail right now Mylar Bags. Mylar Bags are like metal pouches that block anything from light, moisture. You put an oxygen absorber in them, and then you seal them with either an iron or a hair straightener. Because I know that I have Mylar Bags coming, I actually had to buy a hair straightener for this because my hair is pretty straight on its own, so I don't own one. So I just got a cheap $20 one from Target last night in anticipation of the Mylar Bags, and those can be stored for like up to 25 years. So that is how I'm going about pretty much all of my food preservation. It's really smart to diversify all the different ways that you're preserving food, from having shelf-stable options to freezer options to all that kind of stuff. So the ways that I am doing already shelf-stable items are, like I said, having whatever I'm using actually in the cupboard, because I only actually have 2 full-size cabinets and like a half cabinet above my stove that I can keep food in. Everything else we're going to have to buy a shelf to put in the basement to keep the rest of this stuff, because we do have very limited cupboard space. So I'm just going to keep one that we can use, and then these will go in the basement on that shelving unit, and so will the Mylar Bags. And I see some people even putting Mylar Bags inside of 5-gallon like food buckets with lids. That keeps it even safer. You know where they all are. And as it comes time, you know, for the produce that's in our yard, like blueberries and raspberries and all that good stuff, I'm going to be dehydrating some like I am the bananas right now. I'm also going to be freezing some, and then also making some into like jellies, jams, syrups, stuff like that. And that would just diversify my crops and just make it so, you know, if the power goes out, I don't lose all my food that's in the freezer. But say if, you know, we something happens to all of the canned goods, I don't know, we get an earthquake and they all break and shatter, we still have, say, what's in the freezer and what have you. It's just really smart to diversify the way that you're saving your food. So today, we will be getting the pasta in jars, because I have a lot of it, and we will also be putting the bananas in the dehydrator. So what I've got going here are my bananas or fruit of choice, a cutting board, a knife, and then these are all of the trays for the dehydrator. So I've just got here, I've got 5 of them here, and I'm just going to slice these super thin as I can get them, and place them on here. And I want them to be all pretty even, so that way they dry consistently with each other. So this might take a while, so I'm just going to put some music on and get this done. So now I'm just going to let them sit here and do their thing for about like 6 to 12 hours, depending on the thickness and the humidity in your house and all stuff like that. So I'm probably going to check them about in 6 hours. So it's 1:37 right now. So I'll check it after dinner tonight. And if it needs more time and we're going to go to bed, I actually plugged these into an outlet that I have a timer on. That's a timer for the grow lights over here. But that way, because my model doesn't have a built-in timer, I can put the timer for when I want it to turn off. That way I don't have to stay up until potentially, you know, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And so now what we're going to do with the banana peels that we now have from those 7 bananas is we're going to put them in a jar of water and let them soak 24 hours and then remove the banana peels to then water our plants. It's a nice potassium fertilizer. Here on the counter, they shall stay for 24 hours. So now I've got to get this behemoth filled with hot water and boiling. This is my pressure canner, which I am going to use to sterilize some jars to put up some dry goods. So this is on the stove now, and I filled it not quite halfway with water, and I put that, I don't even know what it's called, rack in the bottom here so the jars don't actually touch the bottom. If you aren't using an actual canner and you don't have a rack, it's fine to just use like a washcloth or a kitchen towel or something like that. You just don't want your jars sitting directly on the metal that's on the flame. So use what you have. And so now I'm going to get as many jars as I can fit in here. Sterilizing, I want them boiling for about 10 minutes. That just kills any bacteria or anything that could be on those jars since, you know, you don't know where they've been and stuff like that, especially when you get them from the thrift store or places like that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to let them cool and dry, and then we'll get the dry goods in them. Some people use their dishwasher to sterilize their canning jars, but I don't have a dishwasher. And I also hear a lot of people say that they don't trust their dishwasher to fully sterilize them. So it's better to be on the safe side and just boil them for 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long. So now that I have my jars in here, I want to bring the water up to above the jars. So I'm going to just do some of these to get it up to the level that it needs to be. one more should do it. And another thing that I wanted to mention is because I filled up the pot with as hot of water as my sink could produce, I also swished the jars in warm water before putting them in, because if you start out with hot water, you want hot everything, so you lower the risk of any type of thermal shock or breaking or anything like that. So I'm gonna let these come to a boil. Once it's boiling, it'll be in there for 10 minutes, and then we can take them out and dry them and put our goods in them. And while we are waiting for those jars to sterilize, I have one more bag of flour that I need to put in my bulk container. So last night at Target, I got this container to store my bulk flour in. So this actually is a dog food container. And I went this route instead of just like a Rubbermaid tote because it has the gasket, so I felt like it was going to be a little more airtight than just one of those Rubbermaid storage containers. And then I got just a cheap, you know, scoop to keep in here, and I have this that I can just set right on here and sift my flour right into here to get any potential bugs or anything, because this has been sitting in the freezer at least, well, this one's been sitting in the freezer overnight. The ones that I put in here last night had been in the freezer for a long time, and that just decreases any risk of any eggs that potentially could be in your flour from hatching. It just kills all that kind of stuff off. So now I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna sift it in here and work on filling up this tub. And I have one more big bag of flour in there right now in the freezer, but I just put that in the freezer, so I'm going to wait until tomorrow to put that in this container. And once I have this container full, any other flour that I get, I'm going to be putting in jars like we're doing the pasta today, but also in Mylar bags. And so the jars that I'm going to have are going to be to replenish this bucket as I use it, and then the Mylar bags are going to be like the backup, because Mylar bags are expensive, and so you really want to use those for long-term storage. Yes, my hands are clean, in case you're wondering. And this, by doing that, it creates just like the fluffiest flour consistency. So I'll put my scoop back in. Close it up. So this is all the extra pasta that I have. Most of it is the cavatappi, because that is our favorite one that we eat a lot of. I've got a little bit more small shells, some elbows, and linguine. All of the other types of pasta that I have, I only have one box. So I have those just in the cupboard. These are 2 jars that I sterilized last night. So I am going to start with these, and I'll show you how the process is done. So literally all I do is I have this funnel that I stick in my jar. And I pour in the noodles. And because I only have a little bit less left of these, I'm also going to just kind of make like a random noodle assortment. Oops. And I'm gonna I put some of the cavatappi in there as well. So now that we have these in here, I'm going to just take a lid that I've washed and dried, pop it on, and then I take this guy, pop that on, and then this pump, match the hole up with the hole. So I've done it 15 times now, and it's getting a little tough. I'm just gonna do it a few more. So I've done a total of 20 times now, so let's take this off and do a little pull test. And it's on. So now I just take a Sharpie marker and mark the today's date. And today is 6/14/22. And you could totally also write on the lid what it is, but it's obvious what it is. Now to do this a bunch more. So time is up on these jars, and I'm just going to use this tool here to get them out. Be careful, everything is very hot. And while these cool here, let's go take this to the chickens. Hello, ladies. I have a snack for you. That'll keep them busy for a little while. And look at this. There's one here and one here. I really did not think that the snap peas were gonna do anything, because here we are June 14th, and that's the first flowers that I've seen on them. They have been grown really tall. It's about 4 feet tall right now, but they haven't produced anything. But we've had a little bit of a strangely cool beginning of the summer. I guess it's still technically spring right now, but maybe we'll get a few snap peas off of them before the heat takes over. Look at the herb garden. It has just exploded. Look at the fennel. I think tomorrow I will put some of these guys in the dehydrator. But look at how gorgeous this is. Let me know down in the comments below what your guess is as to what plant this is. It's absolutely beautiful. The peppers are exploding. Just got peppers left and right. These are the lilac bells. Look at how beautiful. Those are some pretty peppers. And then over here, we've got a couple poblanos forming. And let me walk you over here to the tomatoes. Look at those. How gorgeous. These are the black strawberry tomatoes from Baker Creek. Super exciting. So now that these are cool to the touch, I am just flipping all of these over to let any excess water drain out, because you don't want to introduce any moisture when you are trying to make things shelf stable. So I still have all of the, let's see, that one's empty, but I have a box of elbows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more boxes of cavatappi. And so I've got more jars sterilizing in the pot over there, but I was able to fit an entire box of this thin linguine in a quart-sized jar, and then we've got 2 quart-sized jars of the cavatappi, 4 pint-sized jars of the cavatappi, 2 pints of the small shells, and then 1 pint of cavatappi and the small shells. And so this is exactly what I'm going to be doing when the bananas come out of the dehydrator. I'm going to be putting those in some jars as well. And you can do this with any shelf-stable item. You can do this with rice, pasta, beans, dehydrated fruits, spices, all kinds of stuff. So I hope that this encourages you guys to just go out and preserve something. You know, even if it's 1 box at a time, add that to your grocery list. And just start to get a stockpile, because it might not feel like you're doing much at the time, but even one thing makes a difference. This is the first video that she's going to be in. Last Thursday we got this cutie. Her name is Lulu, or Lucy, and she is adorable. My sister had a stray cat on her property have kittens, and she was the only one that survived. So we took her in, and she is just a ball of fur. She's really faring quite well with the dogs. The dogs are adjusting to her as well as one would expect. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope that this encourages you to go start even, you know, drying herbs or something. Okay, I'll put you down. And I hope you have a great day. Bye.